Hi everyone, this is Andrew Prima, Ukrainian American, living and reporting from the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. I'm a founder of Ukraine Business News, UBN.News, reporting from the front lines of the Ukrainian war with Russia. In today's podcast, day 28 of war in Ukraine. The enemy didn't conduct offensive operations in the northwest area of Ukraine, which is close to the border with Belarus. The possibility of participation of certain units of the armed forces of Belarus in the Russian aggression against Ukraine remains high. According to available data, up to 4 battalion tactical groups from the armed forces of Republic of Belarus are near the Ukrainian-Belarusian border. In the north area of Ukraine, the enemy intensified airstrikes in the air of multiple towns and villages. Along the line of contact, the enemy continues to engineer the positions and install minefields. During the day, the enemy carried out artillery shelling of towns and villages in the northeastern outskirts of Kyiv. In the northern part of Ukraine, the enemy is trying to blockade and occupy the city of Chernihiv, conducting airstrikes of the city. The goal of the enemy is to assess the results of airstrikes and identify the positions of the units of the armed forces of Ukraine. Also, the Russian forces damaged an ammonia pipeline in the suburbs of Chernihiv during the shelling. The damage was fixed and the ammonia vapor concentration within the acceptable limits, confirmed the mayor of city Chernihiv. In the results of constant bombings, Russian forces destroyed the main bridge, which provides the access to city of Chernihiv. The bridge actually was carrying 90% of the traffic to the city. Due to successful operations by the army forces of Ukraine, the enemy was stopped in the Brovary region, which is the closest region outside of Kyiv, and the enemy tried to break through the defensive positions of our troops in order to reach the northwestern outskirts of Kyiv, but he was successfully pushed back. As of today, up to 12,000 Russian soldiers are near Kyiv. Of these, 3,000 are almost surrounded, and another 4,000 have been cut off and soon will be surrounded by Ukrainian forces. According to the head of Kyiv military administration, on March 23rd, the situation around the capital of Ukraine remained difficult but under control. Due to inability to enter or surround Kyiv, the enemy continues to fire on residential areas of the capital, and Ukrainian defenders continue to strike at the occupiers' manpower and equipment. Recently, the Pentagon confirmed that the armed forces pushed back the occupiers 35 kilometers east of Kyiv, which is approximately 20 miles. The Pentagon said that the occupying forces are currently about 55 kilometers from the center of capital. In the Kharkiv region, the enemy carried out artillery strikes on the city, but failed to carry out active offensive operations. In the northern part of Ukraine, in the city of Sumy, units of the Russian army didn't conduct active offensive operations. The main efforts were focused on blocking the city, inflicting artillery and airstrike on civilian infrastructure and buildings. In the Donetsk region, the occupiers made an attempt to break through the defense of our troops. The Ukrainian army forces holding the defense. The enemy keep on shelling units of the armed forces of Ukraine in the vast majority of directions. The main efforts are focused on capturing the positions of our troops around the city of Mariupol and the villages through which they can get access to the city. According to NATO, Putin could use weapons of mass destruction against the NATO allies. According to the Voice of America journalist Jeff Sheldon, the alliance considers that Russia will use weapons of mass destruction even against NATO. Putin is dangerous, and his inner circle are completely reckless. The US Department of Defense said that since the beginning of Russia's war against Ukraine, the occupiers have launched more than 1,200 missiles. The Pentagon said that the Russians had not yet used most of arsenal of the rocket's surface-to-air and cruise missiles. So far, the Ukrainian army destroyed 105 planes of occupiers since the beginning of full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine. 6 enemy planes, 1 helicopter, and 5 cruise missiles were shot down during the day. Thus, we expected the desired number, 100 enemy aircrafts, and now 105 enemy planes are considered destroyed. For several days, the enemy planes did not perform any air operations at all, except for the environmental protection zone in Mariupol, where the air defense system is not so strong due to military losses, said the President Zelensky advisor. The magazine Times reports that Russia's plans to stage a great terror is actively pursued. Southern part of Ukraine, in Kherson city, kidnapping locals and smuggling them across the Russian border. The British edition refers to a letter probably written by a member of the Special Forces of Russia. It emphasizes that the Kremlin no longer wants to play well with protesters in the Ukrainian city, where people take the streets every day challenging the occupiers. Currently, the nuclear plant Chernobyl has been occupied for the last 20 days. It has been terrorized by Russian terrorists and has been constantly under the fire. The occupiers still keep workers of the nuclear plant as hostages. Currently, most fires in the Chernobyl exclusion zone have been localized. Russia is preparing chemical attacks against Ukraine as well. The Center of the National Security and Defense Council warned of possible preparation by Russia for chemical attacks during a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The agency points out that Russian TV channels tell the audience every day about some mythical laboratories that allegedly created a chemical weapon in Ukraine. As always, the Russian lies never stop. Today, Ukrainian Railways was attacked by hackers. Online services are not available. Online ticketing and telephone services are not available. However, the passenger data is safe. The situation will not affect the movement of trains either, stated the CEO of the Ukrainian Railways Company. The Belarusian army doesn't want to fight against Ukraine, says Foreign Minister of Ukraine Dmytro Kuleba. We have communicated very simply and clearly to the Belarusian side that if the armed forces enter the territory of Ukraine, start any hostilities, they will be ruthlessly destroyed. And I think the first thing that should interest Belarusian people is their children, brothers, and husbands that might die here for some absurd ideas of Putin and Lukashenko. The Pentagon doesn't believe that Russia is ready to join the war against Ukraine. A senior US Defense Department official says there are no signs that the Belarusian army is preparing to join the war in Ukraine. According to the former Minister of Interior Affairs of Ukraine, Arsen Avakov, if the Belarusian dictator Lukashenko dares to give the order and go to war with Ukraine on the side of Russia, the losses of his army will be enormous. He also added the Belarusian army at most can provide 15,000 soldiers that have never had any combat experience. So, there has been a lot of speculation about Russian situation of the politicians and close circles of Putin. Russian Minister of Defense has been out of the scene for almost 2 weeks. Shoigu is a public politician, however, he suspiciously disappeared lately. It has been seen lately that Russian top leaders and politicians has a lot of disagreements and conflicts among themselves. The special forces of Russia is pointing the finger that the military has not done enough. At the same time, the military point out the finger at the special forces that they has not done anything for the win, for the victory. Ukraine diplomats stress that not only Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, but also a number of other generals had disappeared from the public view. There are a lot of generals that have been already replaced. They believe that the new commanders will add more force to attack our territories. Also, it has been recorded a massive mobilization in the occupied territories of eastern Ukraine, which began in February. Students are forcibly recruited to the ranks of the occupying army. In particular, all students of Luhansk Railway College and who are almost 18 years old personally called the director of the school to complain that have been forced to join military service of Russian army. A similar situation is happening in Luhansk Medical University, where the mandatory arrival at registration of senior students has been announced. The mobilized students are given outdated equipment of the 1974 model, protective helmets that has been made in 1971. The ombudswoman added that, for example, in occupied by Russian village Horivka, mobilized people without any military experience were gathered, then moved to unfinished buildings without food, heating, weapons, and later used as a living shield. It's almost impossible to escape or refuse because people are thrown into prison immediately. Rumors and panic caused by heavy losses are spreading. For example, 16 people were killed in the Lugansk meatpacking plant. At the same time, relatives are not informed about the place as circumstances of death, the city mayor reported. So we can see the Russian army is in chaos. The Russian army is trying to concentrate the lost forces in order to make any progress in the war against Ukraine. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed my podcast. That was a podcast, day 28 of war in Ukraine. Dear listeners, UBN is a team of 12 people, and despite the Russian invasion, we are still in Ukraine and continue delivering the news for you. The UBN team would like to kindly and humbly to ask you to donate to our operation in order to allow us to continue our existence and deliver the news. You can go to our website www.ubn.news and click the banner to support UBN team. Thank you.